I was in the shower when I felt an insane pain in my stomach that was just so unbearable, and I never really felt anything like it before. 15 minutes later I was just in writhing pain. I could feel my legs were starting to get a bit weak, and decided to go to the GP, and then 30 minutes later I was throwing up everywhere, and it was at that point that I realized that my legs were no longer working. We found that I had a condition called a spinal arteriovenous malformation, which is just an abnormal collection of blood vessels that are prone to bleeding. Once it bled, it caused a whole lot of swelling, and that swelling then compressed my spinal cord, which then caused paralysis. While I was in hospital, I had to decide between two different rehabilitation units. I decided to go to the spinal unit that was further away from home. I had an amazing time through there. It was an amazing place, and I met incredible people. I remember after 3 days of being in hospital the first time, I had a call from a few friends, and I don't think I grasped the intensity of what I was actually going through. I told them I'd be back at school next week, and yeah, I think as a 15-year-old kid I wasn't quite ready for what was about to come. I had some insanely dark moments both in hospital and in the spinal unit. There was a night when I was in hospital. I'd probably been there about 4 or 5 days, and I think reality was starting to set in. I was in the bathroom, and I'd been sitting there for a while just because I was just so sad, and I really just didn't want to leave. I just didn't want to move. And I remember a nurse came to check on me because she was wondering why I'd been there so long, and I just broke down, and it was quite an incredible moment. She just embraced me, to be honest. Some of the ways I think the pain and the hurt that I was feeling manifested went to my relationships and my friendships. Whenever my family would come to see me, my immediate family, I almost just didn't acknowledge them. They would literally come in, they'd sit down, and I'd turn my head away, and I'd just not look at them. I'd barely respond. Not because they did anything, but I think it was a reflection of how I was feeling. All those feelings of hopelessness and loss and grief and fear really just came up. It changed the way I acted to some people, and I found that really hard because I didn't want to be doing that. And when you can see it hurting the people who you care about a lot, it kind of doubles down those feelings, and you start to feel guilty about how you're feeling. By the time I got home, and maybe give it a few months, I was walking without crutches, and so I did end up returning to walking, but I was never quite fully the same. It almost turned into a bit of an invisible disability where on the outside I looked relatively normal because I was walking around, but I couldn't run. I based so much of my life around playing sport and being relatively good at stuff like that, and being able to not do it after a while. As a 15-year-old, that was an extremely challenging thing to go through, and it definitely grew me up very fast. It was in my second year of uni when I was walking to my lecture, and I remember tripping up, which wasn't that unusual at the time. And I remember trying to get up, and I really struggled, and my friend had to help me. I realized that this whole left leg had gone completely numb. It's kind of that point, it kind of hit me that it had probably happened again, and I think I'd ruptured once more. Internally, I think I didn't want to admit it, and so I kind of just waited for everyone to leave, and I said I'd just go to the bathroom and meet them in class. And so I literally hobbled over and kind of held all the railings and walked all the way to an empty stairwell. And so I sat down by myself, and I think I just had a few seconds just to grasp what was actually happening again. And yeah, it was at that point I decided to make a few calls, and yeah, I called my girlfriend at the time. I then called my dad, and then I called the ambulance. From that point onwards, there was a span of 2 years where I had to essentially make a whole lot of really tough decisions and decide whether to have surgeries, whether to not have surgeries. I continually had to put off uni. Each time I had to decide before surgery whether I actually wanted to do the surgery or not. They were all elective, and it came down to having to decide between a life where I don't have a risk of being paralyzed again and I'll have kind of stability in my life, but I also had to then decide I could have a less risky surgery, but I might not have that future stability. By the time I got to my last surgery, the surgeon was at the mindset of he can go as aggressive as he wants in surgery, but it's not likely that I'll have any function after that. I decided to go with it in the end because I just wanted some form of finality in my life. You know, I was so tired by this point of having to make these decisions and of being hopeful for a good recovery and then coming out of surgery and being disappointed. Yeah, I think I just wanted some form of peace from it in the end. The past 2 years of being in the wheelchair full time have had so many ups and downs, and it's been a learning curve, and it's just been slowly trying to reintegrate myself into like a normal life. There's been a lot of formational questions and things that I've had to think about along the way. After my last surgery, I went back into the degree that I was doing before. I had just broken up with my girlfriend, who I'd gone through that whole process with, as well as all of a sudden I was doing something full-time in the wheelchair, and I'd never done that before. And so that along with exam stress just made it a really intense first semester of uni, where I had so much to process and deal with. Throughout this whole 5 years, I really struggled with things like frustration, I struggled with hopelessness, I struggled with loss, grief. I had difficulty trusting God in these moments. I felt like I didn't belong a lot of the time. I felt like a severe lack of joy and excitement for my future as well throughout these times. Friends and family were really important to me at this point in time because they allowed me to be myself and just be them, experience the emotions that I was feeling at the time. And that just helped me process things so much better because I didn't feel any external pressure. I believe in the power of prayer so much, and I've single-handedly witnessed this, and I just think if it wasn't for the people praying for me, then I wouldn't be in the same position that I am now. Often we give prayers and we don't understand God's perspective. God's perspective on the things that we go through is so much larger than ours, and oftentimes we think when we don't hear an answer to our prayer that it's God not answering it. We just see something that hasn't resulted, and we think it's that God doesn't want it, or He doesn't love us, or something along those lines. Whereas, matter of fact, it's kind of like a parent who sometimes says no to things that their children ask for because they know that in reality it's not the best thing for the child to have. Or I think the other side of it is sometimes we just haven't seen the fruits of that prayer yet, and God knows when the right time is. Either way, no matter which one He chooses, the outcome is better than if we had it in our own hands. And it's just a matter of trusting God with your prayer and your future. I believe that life has so much to offer, and there's so much joy that we can have in life, and there's so much love that we can experience. I just think it stems from not overlooking the little things and appreciating the small things that happen in life. There were times where I felt no joy, I felt no hope, and I couldn't really even envision hope because I was so far removed from it. And sometimes in those moments when you're so void of hope, it's hard to be excited for your future. I just believe that in those times we just need to persevere, do what we need to do to get by, get all the people around you to support you as much as you can, pray as much as you can, and I know that it will get better. It has for my life. No matter how dire the situation is and no matter how much hope you've lost, I just know that at one point in time you will experience joy again.